What was the moment that you knew you loved your significant other? We were sitting in the car on the way to the movies and showing each other our favorite music, and I looked over at her. Her presence felt so right, and my heart overflowed with joy and excitement, and it dawned on me then, I love her, and I never want to be apart. We have been married almost 3 years now.
That's a nice moment to reflect on. Just sitting there, sharing music, must have created a strong connection. It's great how those little experiences can lead to something deeper. Almost 3 years of marriage says a lot about how well you two fit together. It's cool to think about how a simple car ride can change everything.
This one is hard for me to answer because there are really two answers. The first answer is literally the first second I saw her. I knew immediately that she would be an important person in my life, even though she scared me. I found everything about her fascinating. I wanted to be not just her friend, but her best friend. I wanted to live in her house with her. I just knew. The second answer is more due to being autistic and bad at people, and I won't go deeply into except to say, I realized that I was in love with her too late. Literally at the time, she gave up on me ever making a move and had decided to move on. Thankfully, we got a second chance years later, and now we've been married for 13 years.
It's interesting how some connections hit immediately. You see someone and just know they're important. It's awkward how feelings can develop later, though. Being slow to recognize those feelings can lead to missed chances. It worked out in the end, though. A second chance can really change things. Getting married after all that time shows how strong that bond is. It's cool when things come full circle like that.
Met her at work. She was this quiet, nerdy lab-looking geek reading pathology reports to diagnose patients. I randomly asked her out just on a whim. I 100% expected her to say no. We went walking down this pier after eating dinner. Then we saw these street performers, and that was when I saw this girl do something I have never seen in person. She went over to one of the performers who was breathing fire, and she did it too. It was the coolest shit I ever saw. My wife's a badass, and she's a MD.
That's a pretty unique story. It's cool how you took a chance asking her out, not expecting much. The fire-breathing thing is definitely memorable, too. It's nice seeing a different side of someone you thought you knew. Your wife's got some skills. She sounds like someone who's not just smart but also adventurous. Must be great to have that blend of intellect and boldness in your life.
I'm not sure the exact moment, though I remember reaching a point where I started to Google, how soon is too soon to say, I love you? Most of the articles gave a number between 3 and 4 months. At the time I knew I loved him, we'd only been together a month. Then one day I came back from a bad experience, and he insisted he'd come over to comfort me. I was red-faced and snotty, and had gone mostly non-verbal from the experience. He held me and stroked my hair, and I just felt so safe and loved. I knew I had to tell him. I was scared he wouldn't feel the same, and I was going to come across too intense, but he said it back. He told me he had also been wanting to say for some time too. I've never met a man as kind and gentle and truly wonderful as him. I feel a part of me knew I loved him from the moment we met. Love.
That's a nice moment. It's interesting how love can sneak up on you. The whole waiting period to say, I love you, can feel pretty intense. Sounds like that experience brought you closer though. Sharing those vulnerable times really makes a difference. It's good that he felt the same way too. Must have felt like a relief. Relationships like that can be pretty special. Enjoy those moments together.
Honestly, it wasn't when we first met. I was guarded and traumatized from my last serious relationship. I think I realized I loved them when I noticed how safe I felt being around them. Instead of fearing I would be hurt, I felt as though this was someone who would rather fight to protect me than do anything to hurt me.
That's relatable. It's interesting how love can grow without us noticing at first. It's about feeling secure and having trust. Sometimes, the right person comes along when you least expect it. Just realizing that someone chooses to protect you, instead of being a source of pain, can shift everything. It's a simple but powerful feeling.
So my wife and I were friends for years before we started dating. I knew her really well and thought she was an all-around amazing person. After spending some time alone with her, I became really infatuated by her. Her energy, her passion, her will, her aura, it was all intoxicating. Then we kissed. It was like time stood still. We spent the entire night together, just melting into each other. I knew the moment we touched that I loved her. Once the chemistry was undeniable, I couldn't help myself. We were both talking to multiple potential partners, and I don't think either of us were seriously looking to date at the time. 11 years later, I still think of those nights with her in our small apartment. My heart is literally racing, typing this ick man. She's the fucking best. I gotta get out of work and head home to her and our son. We have a night of Mario Party and steaks to get to.
It's cool how friendships can turn into something deeper. That moment when you kissed and everything changed must have been something else. Those late-night memories in the apartment sound special. Now, having a family and those Mario Party nights is a nice way to look back on it all. It's the little moments that stick with you. Hoping you enjoy the steaks and time together.
That's a great question. I met my wife, and one of the first times I really talked to her, I was trying to help her get her DVD player to work because she was trying to watch her X-Men movie DVD. I mean, that's pretty cool. Her DVD was burned out due to accidentally plugging it in overseas to a higher voltage. We've been married 20 years.
That's a nice story. It's funny how something simple, like helping with a DVD player, could lead to a lasting relationship. It shows that little moments can turn into something big. 20 years is a long time. It's interesting how those everyday experiences can bring people together. It makes you appreciate those small things that start it all.
I think it was our third date. We went for a walk along the shore of a nearby lake. It was a chilly spring afternoon. I asked him about his childhood, and he told me a funny story. While he was telling it, he slipped out of his hoodie and handed it to me. I only realized I was cold when he gave it to me, and we laughed about what he had just told me. I put it on, and it smelled like home. He is my husband now and travels for work. I will always keep one of his shirts that he wears at night when he is away. His scent is heavenly and always comforts me.
That's a nice memory. It's interesting how small moments, like sharing a hoodie, can turn into something meaningful. The connection made during that walk must have been special, especially sharing laughter. Now, with him traveling, it's cool you have something to keep close to feel comforted. It's those little reminders that often carry the most weight in our lives.
I remember the first time I saw my now wife eat spaghetti. For context, my parents were really strict about table manners, and I just wasn't having it regarding spaghetti. And when I saw my date eat spaghetti and aggressively slurp a stray noodle with a little whip at the end, I was like, yes, let's go. The idea of trying to do it right, and then doing what you gotta do, yes please.
That's a relatable moment. It's funny how first impressions can stick with you. Watching someone unapologetically enjoy their food can really change your perspective on things like table manners. It sounds like it was refreshing to see that kind of freedom. Sometimes it's the little quirks that make a person stand out. That's probably one of those moments that you look back on and smile about.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.